My name is Samuel Stokes of SamuelStokesMusic.com, and I am starting some Finale tutorials on my YouTube channel. And today I'm just going to start with some very simple Finale basics. Just want to explain to you how to create a simple song on Finale. Now, you might have other ways of doing it than what I do, and you're feel free to comment below if you have other ideas of faster ways or more efficient ways to do it. That's the whole purpose of doing this, is to come up with more efficient ways to write on Finale. This is Finale version 25. The first thing I'm going to do is go to File, go to New, and I'm going to go to Document with Setup Wizard. So this is one way that you can start a piece. So we're going to start with a very simple piano piece. I'm just going to show you kind of the steps of the process that I would go through to make a nice looking score. So we'll say create new ensemble, which is the highlighted default, so click next. I'm going to pick keyboards, piano, and I usually pick piano no staff name because it really doesn't look very professional. I've seen a lot of scores online where you have the word piano listed on every system, and that's just not ever done in any sort of published scores. So I always pick that no staff name when I'm doing a solo piano piece. Now it may be different if you're doing something for an ensemble which includes piano, and then in that case you might want to specify that that's the piano. But it all just depends on the context. So I'm going to click add, so that adds piano with no staff name. That's going to be the only thing on here, so I'm going to click next. So we're going to type in Mary had a little lamb, because that's the piece that we're going to transcribe today. And you want to enter some things, and I'm going to just put here for piano and make it really obvious. Under composer, we'll just say traditional. Arranger will be me. And down here under copyright, it's always good to put your copyright so people know that this work belongs to you. And I always make a point of putting my website, because I'm spending money keeping that website going, so might as well make sure I draw attention to it. So that's my website. Now you notice I have the S on there. That's kind of a new thing. Google doesn't like it without the S anymore. That shows that it's a secure website. That's really all I know, is that you need to start putting that, apparently. So 4/4, C major, Mary had a little. Now you don't have to necessarily choose the number of measures. If you know it, you can go ahead and put it. Now for the initial tempo marking, probably a little less than that. We'll say 96. This is kind of an andante tempo, walking tempo. And no pickup measure, starts on the downbeat, at least any version of it that I've ever done. Click finish, and that starts this template. Now, yeah, you notice how it kind of automatically fills in things. Now, there's this score thing here. Usually what I do is I get rid of it by highlighting it and clicking delete. You can do it that way. You can also go through the score manager menu to do that. That's another way that you can do it. And then I would select these three. This is just how I do it. Go down here to size, switch it to 10. And then I adjust that by hitting the arrow keys. That way you make sure everything moves together. And I bring that a little close together because it's oddly spaced by default. Alright, now to do note entry, there's a few ways you can go about doing this. A lot of people use MIDI keyboards, so you can actually plug in your keyboard, and usually now they have a USB converter, so you can go straight from keyboard into USB. Actually, there are some keyboards, I believe, that just go directly to USB. I ought to know that, but I don't really do that. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a good idea. It probably is. People that use MIDI keyboards say that they like doing it that way. I really like typing it in, and I don't know, maybe that's just an early bias. I started with Finale many years ago. I think it was back in 1996, maybe. It was back when I was in high school, and I tried it, and I didn't have much luck getting everything to quantize correctly. And it may have just been the way I was doing it. There's probably better ways of doing it. I know you can actually hold the keys down on the keyboard and press a numeric keypad to give you your note. But what I actually like to do is click the notes in myself. I feel like I have a little better control over it. And I'll just show you the way I do it. You know, in your comments, you can tell me if you think this is not a good way to do it, but I get pretty good fast results this way, so it works for me, and I'm just going to show you. So you can do two things. You can either click up here to choose your note, and you can move this around if you want to. You can put it, you know, if you like it better on the side. I didn't move it. You know, you can move these menus around and put them where you want. I just like to keep mine along the top the way it was, either above or below the controls. It doesn't really matter. Actually, I usually keep them down here. So you can click on there and select. All right, now I need to switch to a half note. So I can either click up here, or you can press on the numeric keypad. The number 6 switches it to half note, and usually what I do is I have the right hand on the mouse, I have my left hand kind of actually drifts between the numeric keypad and the regular keyboard proper with the numbers on top and the letters below, because there's different shortcuts that you can use on the keyboard, which I will talk about in a little bit here. So I switched it over to half note, and then I still have my hand on the numeric keypad, pressed 5 on the numeric keypad, 6 to get back to the half note, 6 to get back to the half note, so I'm switching back and forth. Now, you know that these first two measures are the same here, so what I'm going to do is you click on that little selection tool right there. You click on one measure, hold shift, click on the second measure, so that selects a measure region. If you wanted to select more, you just select, you know, the end of the region that you want, but I just want it to there, so I'm going to click here and click to there. Now, a really quick way to copy that over, there's actually a couple things you can do. You can drag it and copy it here, so that's one way. You can also, as that is highlighted, just control click here and it does it. I use that a lot because it's just a little quicker than trying to drag and drop. The third option would be to copy and paste, which you can use control C to put it in the clipboard, control V to paste it, or, you know, the much slower way, you can go through the edit menu and select copy and paste. Notice control C and control V are listed to the sides of copy and paste. That's pretty universal. Most Windows programs do that. So that's a good one to know in general. But always look at any commands that you use often. Learn the keyboard shortcut because it's much, much quicker in the long run. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And then quarter notes. Now for whole note, that's 7 on the numeric keypad, so you have that. Now, obviously we have some extra measures here, so there's a few things we can do. Actually, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to put it up an octave for the second part. So I selected that region, held Control and clicked here in order to do that. Now notice, well, now I don't remember. I don't think we had enough measures here. I think it actually, yeah. So we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 measures. Well, that is how many we have. Just for the sake of argument, let's say we didn't have that many. If we copy and paste here in this way, it will add those extra measures there. So it will actually lengthen it out to make sure that you have room to paste your item if you're at the end of the piece and don't have any more room. Okay, now the thing that I like to do whenever you have something in really regular phrasing like this is all in 4-measure phrases, then it's nice to have it where it displays by phrase, by line. At least it's a personal preference. So if you Control A, it will select all of the measures in the entire piece. And then while they are selected, if you click Control M, pulls up this Fit Measures menu or screen here. And you notice that one of these defaults here is lock. Well, actually the default is lock selected measures into one system. If you do that, then they're all going to go in one system. That's not very readable. So we're going to do Control M again and select this top one. Lock layout 4 measures per system. Of course, you can change that number if you want to, but in this case, it's regular 4-measure phrases. So that is a lot easier for a young pianist to read. Right? You can read those notes. You can see the phrases the way that those measures are locked together into 4 measures per group. So I really like that. I think that's a good thing to do. Now let's go back. So I'm going to show you some other keyboard shortcuts that I use to make entering the chords a little faster. So on this, I'm going to do it pretty simple. I think whole notes, maybe half notes on some of these chords. One of the neat features of Finale, the other numbers, right, the numbers that are above the letters on the keyboard, not the numeric keypad, but the ones that are above the letters. If you click here and you click those numbers, it actually does intervals above that note when you're using the simple note palette. So you have to select one here and then boom, you put in that C. If I hit 3 twice, it really quickly adds 2/3 above, right? A third above the C, a third above the G in the key signature. It doesn't, it doesn't do major thirds and minor thirds. It just does whatever's diatonic in the key. So da 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 da. And here we're on a 5 chord. So I'm going to do first inversion 5 chords. So you do 3 and 4, so you get a third and then a fourth. So it's it's a G major chord in first inversion. If you wanted to do the 5/7, you could also do that. You could do a 5 and a 2. But you see how quick that is. Instead of me having to click, boom. Let's go back. Instead of me having to go click, 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 to do 3 notes there. Click one note, and very quickly put the intervals on top, back to C major chord. And yeah, and actually that second line is going to be exactly the same, right? So it's not a very complicated song. So yeah, I can do a lot of copying and pasting and get that done. There we go. Whole piece is done, right? Sort of, right? Now I want to go back and improve the layout a little bit. This is me being very particular, but I like my scores to look as clean and professional as possible. So the first thing I do is kind of drag this one, kind of move it over, because the default indentation is a little far to the right, I believe. I mean, you can look at published scores and see varieties, but it seems like it's too far over the way it is by default. So I always drag that in a little bit, and then I tend to space these by hand. There's another way that you can go through here and kind of automatically space systems, but when it's just this few, I usually just do it manually. So I just drag them down all, try and kind of eyeball it about the same distance. That looks a little more even across the page, rather than being kind of crunched toward the top. Gives your younger reader, a little extra, it makes it a little easier for them to follow which line that they're on. Now I'm going to go and do one more thing here, or actually 2 more things. We're going to add a dynamic. I always like to have a dynamic and a tempo mark. And again, I have keyboard shortcuts. Expression tool is the MF, the mezzo forte sign here. And what I do, there's the number keys are all different dynamics. And 5, that's mezzo forte. Right, that's good. Needing medium volume here. You have some other ones here. Let's see, 4 is forte. 6 is mezzo piano, 7 piano, right? So the different number keys are different ones. I'm going to delete those. So we'll just keep the mezzo forte. And then if I go to the lyric tool, remember this is for a beginning pianist, so I'm going to try to keep everything very simple. I will do the type into score, and that may have already been defaulted for me doing this before, but if you click on type into score in the lyric menu, then you can type in finger numbers. You can use that for finger numbers. You can also use it for lyrics, of course. So let's say I just want to mark in, I can type and then space between the numbers. Now when it's the same number, I usually don't do it again. Now you notice it leaves that little word extension thing, which is really for vocals, and I'll show you how to remove that in just a minute. But I'm using one hand on the numbers, one hand on the space bar, so I can do this quickly. Now I wouldn't necessarily go in and mark this for every single line since there's so much repetition here, but just for the sake of showing you, demonstrating it, I'm going to show you that. Okay, now so you go to the lyric options. So lyric menu, you have to have this quill selected, which is the lyric tool. Go to the lyric menu, lyric options, and go to word extensions. Undo this, and then you won't have those pesky word extensions. Yeah, they disappear. There you go. Now you don't have to worry about those. Now, it is a problem if you also include text. If I had decided to put the lyrics below here, then you wouldn't be able to do it that way. Maybe I'll demonstrate that in a minute, because I want to make sure that I don't leave you confused on how to do something. So that got rid of the word extensions, but I'll go back in a minute and show you an alternate option. Now, I click the articulation tool because I want to put a fermata on the last note, because why not? You could either double click on the note, or I'm sorry, single click on the note, and it pulls up this menu, so you could select the fermata that way, right? But shortcut, I love shortcuts because they make everything so much faster. You hold F, click the note, and it puts it on there automatically. Now we have collision up here we're going to have to deal with. And you should put the fermata in both staves. That's proper notation. Now we have a little problem. That number right there has run into the fermata. So one thing you can do is go to the lyric tool, drag the left handle, triangular handle here, takes them all up, okay? Now you don't have to take them all up. If I just wanted to take that line up, wrong. Sometimes I have to remember. You just take that line up, it's the third box from the left. We'll just move that line up, so that way you don't change it universally. The first one kind of changes it universally, so that's the thing. I think the second one only does the current verse, so if you have more than one verse, which we're going to talk about in a second, then you could move them individually that way, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, now let's go back, because I want to talk about what would you do if you wanted those word extensions for the music. So let's go to the lyric menu, lyric options, word extensions. We'll put the extensions back on, just for the sake of argument here. Now we want to move that dynamic out of the way. I click the MF dynamic tool, the expressions tool. Move that up here. In vocal music, you usually put the dynamics at the top so they don't conflict with the text, although it just depends. Right? You got to put it where it's not going to conflict with anything. Now I'm going to go to specify current lyric. All right, so what I did for the finger numbers is essentially verse 1. I'm going to make this verse 2 is going to be the actual text of the song. So now put it down here, and we'll talk about position on that in just a minute. Mary had a little lamb. Right, and every time that I either hit the hyphen to show a syllable or spacebar, it will advance to the next note. Now, you notice it's attached to the treble clef because that's the one that actually has the melody in it. It gets a little more complicated if you have something that has multiple parts on one staff. But I'll probably save that for another video. Okay, so that's essentially that. Now, one thing that we could do here, just to save time, go to the Edit menu, go to Edit Filter. I'm going to click None just to blank out everything. Now, I only want to copy the lyrics, so I'm going to click that. Use that selection tool to select these first 8 bars. Drag that down here, and you see it just copies it straight over. It saves a lot of time. So anything you can do to save yourself time, you know, that's good. So now I'm going to click here again. We're still specified on verse 2 here. That's the lyric we're specifying. So go to that second handle. There we go. See, now that affects just the current verse that is selected, that it has been specified in the Specify Current Lyric menu. So yeah, it centers it a little better, so it looks a little nicer. A little crunched here. Maybe I'll pull it up just a little bit. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit better. But now we have extensions on the top, on the fingerings, and well, I guess we don't have any extensions on the other part. Just for the sake of argument, let me show you. If you have 2 notes like this on the same syllable, right, melisma, in other words, which you'd usually use that for. then it will add that word extension. But say we want that in the lyrics but not in the fingerings, well, then you have to kind of do it manually. It'd be nice if it was easier to do. But you go to the lyrics menu, so again, that quill in the ink, the little well there, that's the lyrics tool. Go to the lyrics menu, go down to edit word extensions, and now I can select the word extensions using those little boxes next to them, and you can hit delete. I think you can select multiple ones. No, maybe not. If only it were that easy. It looks like you have to kind of select them individually. Yeah, doesn't let me. Well, let me see. Yeah, it looks like you have to do them individually. But anyway, that's how you get rid of them off of only one of the lyric verses. If anybody knows differently, let me know, and I'll make sure to set the record straight. Moving this over just a little bit, because I don't want it to conflict too much with that. Kind of just want to make sure everything has good enough spacing to where, you know, it's not visual overload. So you see we still have the one word extension that I added in there, the kind of false one that I made up, but now we don't have them in the fingerings that we use the lyric tool to insert. Now we do have a little thing here with the, you notice how this first one is indented to the left slightly, which is a little irritating. Okay, and this is why. You notice how syllables alignment. See how it's first first syllable in lyric and first syllable at the start of system is defaulted left. Well, try them center. There we go. See, and that centers them. Again, I don't really know exactly why it wants to do it that way, but that's just by default how Finale does it. One of those little annoying things that we have to learn how to work around. Okay, so now that that's done, let's play it back. Typo in there, I guess I'll fix that. And that's why it's always good to listen back and look over your work. Because I didn't see that typo as I was typing it. Now, this is one way. You can actually go in the lyric menu and just fix that word in here. Sometimes that's a little faster than going back and typing it. Just depends. So now we go back, and usually when there's handles on the screen, if you go back to that selection tool, it makes it where you don't see them anymore. So it says, "Fleece was white as snow." Okay, so that's how you make a very simple piano piece. Of course, you'd want to save. I didn't do a very good example of that, but you should save as you go. Control S. You can just have your left hand, hitting that Control S periodically to make sure that you're saving your work as you go. I should have done it, but I wasn't. I sometimes forget. So if you have any questions, let me know by sending a comment to this video. Please do subscribe. Check out my website in the link below. If you like these piano pieces that I write, but you don't want to type your own, go to my website and you can find a bunch of easy piano pieces that I have arranged, actually many hundreds of them. So please purchase, support my life. Thank you. And if you have any suggestions on other sort of things that you would like to learn about Finale, just make sure to leave me a comment. Thanks.